In the last video, we basically prepared Blender for the scene that we will be working on. And in this video, we'll start by creating the shape of the dunes. So first things first, let's just bring this up and I will change it to the shader editor, which is this one right here. Click on the plane and click on new. And here I will call it desert underscore displacement. One important thing before we keep on going is that make sure to go to the material tab, and if you scroll down you will have here an option called settings under the displacement. Make sure to change the displacement from bump only, change it to displacement only so you can see the displacement effect when we start doing it. So we have here our basic principle BSDF, and I will bring the material output here and I'll take this up. And what we're gonna do, as I mentioned, is basically create displacement to change the form of this plane so it looks something similar to sand dunes. So I will go Shift A, search, and I will search for displacement. And for the displacement, I'm not gonna change the settings for now because I will probably get back to them later on when we basically have something to change. So I will just connect the displacement to the displacement and we're ready to go for now. Now what I'm thinking about is what is the texture that is similar to the shape of the dunes. If I pull out here my reference images, is there a texture in Blender that is similar to those kinda wiggling lines inside of Blender? And it is basically the Voronoi texture. So I will go Shift A and just add Voronoi texture. Remember when we activated the Node Wrangler add-on? Now it will come really handy. If you want to see what does this node look like, you can hit Ctrl Shift and click on it, and Blender will basically show you how does this texture look like. And as you can see, it is a little bit similar to the shape of dunes, but we probably can change some settings in the node so it fits better what we're looking for. So let's zoom on it, and first of all, I will change the type from F1 to smooth F1. This you will notice that it will hide those lines, but we'll get them back pretty easily by changing the smoothness. Just drag it down, maybe to something like 0.01, which I think for now will be good. The way of how micro displacement work, or actually how displacement work, Blender, the areas that are kinda in black will be pushed down, the areas that are white will be pushed up, and the gray zones will be the transition from the lowest point to the highest point. So if we imagine this in 3D, if we rise up the white parts, bring down the dark parts, this will basically give us the shape of the dunes. To see this better, or to visualize it, let's plug this distance to the height. We probably won't see anything because we're still seeing the Voronoi texture, so we need to get back to the principle BSDF, Control Shift and click on this. And as you can probably see, something is happening. Notice that there are those lines that are pushed up, so we're good to go. Our shader is working. So now I need a mapping node to change the position of this Voronoi texture. To do that, there is another really useful shortcut that we will be using a lot, which is Ctrl T, and this will add the texture coordinate and the mapping node, and they are really useful in case I want to change the scale or the rotation or the location of this Voronoi texture. But for now, I will leave them the way they are, and the good thing, because we're working on a procedural environment, it doesn't matter, to be honest, the values that you will put right here, for example in the location, because probably it is fully procedural, so you're not destroying anything or you're not ruining the result. So that's why it will always work. Now, as you probably noticed, there is not much going on because the scale value is a little bit pretty low. So I will just change it to 10, and yeah, that's more like dunes. What I want to do right now is to add more variety to the way the Voronoi texture is applied on this plane. To do that, let's just bring those nodes here, Shift A, and I will add a noise texture. Noise texture. If you want to see what does this texture do, hit Control, Shift, and click on it, and that's the noise texture. What I want to do, as I said, is to add more variety to the way this Voronoi texture mapped onto the plane. So what I want to do, for example, I will drop maybe the scale to something like 1.5, and the details I will maybe double them from 2 to 4, and probably I will leave the other settings the way they are, and just maybe a little bit of distortion, something like 1. And to mix it with the original mapping, we will just use a mix node, or in Blender called Mix RGB, and I will plug it right here and take this socket, the factor socket, and plug it into Color 2. And if you want to see this node, Control Shift click on it, and we will have this. And maybe let's just drag this value a little bit down. Probably there's not much happening, so I'll put it like just 0.2 for now. And if you want to see this effect, we will need to get back to the principal BSDF, Control Shift, and let's see what it does. And as you can see, what we did is basically to add more variety to the way this Voronoi texture is applied. And notice that we created this sort of texture right here, which basically will give us some sort of like those small details that are on the dunes. After doing that, let's add even more details to those like big dunes, which is by adding another noise texture. So hit noise, and right here I will take this vector and plug it from here to vector. So I'm using the same mapping node to the Voronoi texture. I will leave the settings the way they are and just bring the roughness up to 1 and add a little bit of distortion, something like 1. And what I want to do is to mix it with this Voronoi texture. How to mix nodes? Shift A, search, and just mix RGB. And I will put it right here before the displacement effect. What's happening right now is that probably Blender is mixing the Voronoi texture with the color 2, which is just twice. So we need to plug the factor into color 2. And notice the result. There are those really weird swirling things. So we need to change the blending mode from mix to overlay. So just change it to overlay, and bam, we just added some more details to this dune. One thing I think that I might want to change is that the value of the distortion is a little bit down, so I might bring it up to something like 1.5. So yeah, that's looking pretty good, I guess. And one thing I noticed right now, even though we probably raised up this value here, I guess the Voronoi texture needs a little bit of a boost. Now you might think that, hey, just get back and change some settings right here. But here's a general rule that we will be applying along this course. If it is possible to change the value of a certain node just by using one slider, just do it, because you will get back to it later and you will thank yourself for doing that. Instead of changing all of those values and spending hours and hours just changing values, it would be really useful if we just change one value. To do that, let's add what we call a math node. I will just add a math node and put it right here. And in a logical way, if we want to make, for example, this Voronoi texture stronger, or if we need to boost it, we will basically need to multiply it. So we need to change the value from add to multiply. And I will change the value to 1.5. And we're getting this shape, which I guess will be good for now in terms of as a basic form for our dunes. And later on, we will probably be changing the values of the multiply settings to get like better results. But for now, we're good to go. And the last thing I want to mention in this video, it is super crucial to organize your nodes because we will have loads of them. So what I'm gonna do is basically to create a box around all of those nodes, except the displacement, and just hit Ctrl G to basically join them and put them inside this box. So if I want to move them, I can move the box. Hit F2 to rename them, and I will call them dunes, which is like the basic form of the dunes that we worked on. That's it for this video, and in the next one, we will add more variation to those dunes, basically by creating some waves that represent the waves that are in the sand of the desert. See you there.